Welcome to the MultiTaction Canvus tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how you can take content that's already on a canvas and share it outside of the application. Now that includes both taking information away that's been created during a collaboration session on the software solution, as well as actually replicating that content elsewhere so it can be used as part of a sharing exercise through either a video conferencing system or a web conferencing system. So let's just take a look at some of the options we've got. Canvus has an external HDMI feed that it can populate with content directly from the canvas. But there's an enormous amount of flexibility with that. You could send the entire canvas, you could send an object on the canvas, or you can have essentially a roving window. I think of it as sort of like a magnifying glass that you can move around anywhere on the virtual canvas and show down the HDMI line just the content under that window. The USB connection allows me to put a flash drive in, and so I can save content that's been generated during the Canvas session straight onto the flash drive. I've also got a file folder which is on the Canvas server, but you could have in your system, you could have that connected to some sort of network file share, and you can save content to there. So here we are back on our tutorial Canvas. So let's take a look at some of the objects we've got on here and how we can actually take those off and share them. So to begin with, I'm going to jump to my entire Canvas view. Here we go. So any of these objects on here can be saved to the storage areas that we just described. So let's zoom into a couple of objects. Here I've got a couple of images. And if I bring up my USB key, here's my storage area, so I can select the technology folder, and so I'm interested in making sure I take this one away, so I must unpin it to be able to drag it, and then literally just like when we put stuff onto the canvas from the USB stick, we drag and drop it straight into the file area. So then if we page down, we'll see our newly added object right there. Now this works equally well with actual Canvas objects. So if I've created notes, for example, so let's go take a look at some notes I've created. So I can jump to one of my anchor points here, to the brainstorming session that we had. And so these are actually in tables, if you recall from the earlier tutorials. So again, I can also drop those into the memory area. So let me unpin that table and drag and drop it straight into the storage area. Now, storing something offline like this does not destroy it on the canvas itself. If you wanted to take all of the information off the canvas and then wipe the slate clean because you've got somebody coming back into this room afterwards and you don't necessarily want them to see this information, you have a couple of options. One is you could password protect it, and we reviewed that in one of the other tutorials, or you could simply delete the canvas when you're finished and create a fresh canvas when you come back if you want to bring that content back onto it. You can also export canvases and import them. So to export the canvas, I bring up the canvas list. Now you can't export a canvas that you're currently working in, so simply switch to another canvas. If you don't have another canvas, just create a dummy one. And then if I open my USB storage area, just drag that over to here, switch to my technology folder, and then I touch and hold the canvas and drag it across. Now, because this is password protected, I can't export this canvas unless I put the password in, which makes sense. So let me just put the password in, and it begins to export the canvas. So once that's completed, I can look down at my list, and here's my default canvas that I took off. Now you'll notice that it still left it in the canvas list because nothing is destructive in empty canvas. So now if I'm actually walking away from this meeting room, I'll probably want to delete this canvas. So let's go ahead and do that. So touch and hold, drag to the trash can, and again, because it's password protected, I can't just simply get rid of it. So I type in the password, hit OK, and there you have it. If I now look at my Canvus list, all of the information that I created during the tutorials, which was super secret, has now been archived off to my USB stick and is no longer on this Canvus server. So let's now prove this all works. So let's go ahead and pull up the Canvus that I exported, and there it is. And so all I have to do is touch, drag, and drop it into the Canvus list, and it asks me, do I want to import that Canvas? And I do. So it's going to go ahead and do that. And as soon as that's complete, I can attempt to open it. Of course, it's still password protected. So let me put my password in. And hey presto, there is my complete Canvas again. Now, you may recall from previous tutorials that there's another file location that we can save things to, and that's the one that's attached directly to the server that MT Canvus is running on. Now, in my case, that literally is just the PC that I'm running Canvus on, but in your system, it may be set up so that that's actually a file share somewhere. And in fact, if you're running a MultiTaction display, it's entirely possible to use CODIS markers, which are the 2D codes, to define your own personal storage area. Now, that can also just be on the server and linked to your card, or it could be on a file share server, which is brought up when you use your card. So let's just quickly show how that works. If we go back to the objects that we saved before to the USB key, if I bring up the finger menu and bring up the folder, here's my file list. I'll go into my folder and again take, drag, and drop the object. And this works just as well with all of the other objects, just like it does with objects that are defined on the canvas that you created, like notes or tables, just like we did with the USB key. And likewise, as we've demonstrated in other tutorials, you can just as easily drag these things back out and put them on the canvas. And some of the other tutorials, we've talked about the video out or the HDMI out feed, which is on this menu option down here on the projection button. We talked before about how you could actually see exactly what was within the scope of the screen that you're looking at or any individual object. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that now. And I'm going to switch to a live camera view. It's going to look quite dark because I've had to dial the white balance down so that you can actually see the content. So here goes. So in this setup, I've got the MT Canvus solution running on the laptop to the left-hand side of this display. And to the right-hand side, I've got a separate screen that's plugged in. Everything looks very dark here because the white balance for this video has been dialed right down so you can see what's actually on the screens. So let me go ahead and turn on the viewport so you can see exactly what the echo is seeing on the HDMI line. Okay, so what you can see is a complete replication of the whole MT virtual canvas in this case. What I can also do here is take any individual object and push that down the line. So recall that this HDMI line, although I have it going into just a dumb monitor here, could be going into your conferencing system or your web conferencing system. So let's pick an object. And for that, I'm going to zoom in. You'll notice that everything I do on the canvas is being replicated on the other screen as well. So now I'm going to take an individual object and project that. So now you can see that the output line is just showing this one object on the canvas that I've selected. You also note that if I move around the canvas, or indeed if I go back to looking at the whole virtual canvas, you can see that that has no impact at all on what's being sent down the line. This is really powerful because you could be running a conferencing session, sharing content directly from, say, a PowerPoint file or from different parts of the canvas while still working and collaborating with people in the room that you have the original canvas in. Now, the other great facility we've got here is the ability to have a window that is being projected that is movable around the canvas. So to get to that, we launch the finger menu, go into the toolbox and pick up the projector window. Now this window is draggable and can change shape. And as I move it over an object, once I turn on the video output, you can see that wherever I move this window is what you actually get to see on the output. Now this is hugely powerful because if you're actually looking at a very complex diagram, for example, and you need to focus in your audience on one particular part of that diagram, this is a fantastic way of doing that very simply. Okay, so let's recap what we looked at. We looked at how to take items from the canvas and store them either in a USB drive or on the drive that the canvas is actually running on. We also recognized that drive might be a network storage area, for example. And then we switched and looked at how you could take a HDMI feed, and we showed how you could take either the entire viewport or sections of the viewport using the floating window or any individual object. And finally, we took a look at how you could import and export an entire canvas if you wanted to make sure that if you're, say, in a shared room, that the things you left behind weren't available for other people to look at. We also recognize that we password protected this canvas, so you also have that level of protection if you're happy to leave that on the Canvas server that you're working on. So that concludes this tutorial on how to share content from within MT Canvas. Thank you for watching.